All right, so today we're diving into AI governance, but not just from the usual angles, you know? We're going to be using integral theory
Ooh, interesting.
as our lens to see how AI is like woven into our lives, our culture, even our evolution as humans.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really about understanding that governing AI, it goes way beyond, just regulations and policies.
Right.
It requires us to look at the human impact
Hmm.
from like all these different perspectives, right?
Absolutely. And that's where these four quadrants come in. The
Yeah.
individual's inner world, the individual's outer world, the collective inner world, and the collective outer world.
Hmm. Okay, I'm following.
So think of it like examining a sculpture, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't just look at it from the front
Hmm.
and assume you understood it completely. You need to like walk around it, see it from different angles to truly grasp its form and meaning.
Yeah, I like that analogy. AI is no different, right?
Yeah.
We need to explore each of these quadrants to really get that holistic view of its impact.
Exactly. So let's start with the individual's inner world,
Yeah.
that upper left quadrant. This is where we're going to consider how AI affects, our values, our beliefs, even our sense of self,
Yeah.
for example. Remember that news story about the AI therapy app that was like pulled from the market?
Oh, yeah,
It
VK.
turned out that the AI was actually reinforcing negative thought patterns in some users.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah, it really highlights those ethical challenges,
Yeah.
that we face in ensuring that AI aligns with our values.
Right, totally. And, the upper left quadrant, it also brings up those questions
Yeah.
about informed consent in the age of AI, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you truly consent to something when the technology itself is
Got it.
constantly learning and evolving?
That's a great point. It's like agreeing to terms and conditions that could like change without you even knowing.
Exactly. And those questions become even more complex when we consider the upper right quadrant, the individual's outer world.
Okay.
So here we're focusing on building safe and reliable AI systems that function as intended. We have to consider the technical standards, the testing, the risk mitigation strategies, all that's necessary to prevent AI from causing like unintended harm.
So this is where the engineers and data scientists come in, making sure that those algorithms are robust,
Yeah.
transparent, accountable for their action.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is the sheer volume of global initiatives that are focused on doing AI right. There are over 100 AI ethics principles being developed all around the world.
Wow, that's incredible. But with so many different ethical frameworks, how do we like avoid conflicting guidelines and ensure consistency in AI development?
Yeah, that's a key challenge. And it really highlights the importance of moving beyond the individual and considering the collective aspects of AI governance.
Okay.
So that brings us to the lower left quadrant, the realm of like shared values, beliefs,
Yeah.
and the stories we tell ourselves about technology.
So this is where we get into how cultural narratives shape our perception and acceptance of AI, right?
Yes. Think about how differently AI is portrayed, in movies and books from different cultures.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, for example, in Japan, robots are often depicted as these helpful companions. Well, in Western cinema, we tend to see AI as like this potential threat.
It's amazing how deeply ingrained those cultural narratives are
Yeah.
and how they can influence our views on technology. I wonder how those differences might play out in terms of global AI governance.
That's a really crucial consideration. And it kind of leads us to the lower right quadrant, the institutional and regulatory frameworks that we create to manage AI on a societal level.
Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road, translating those ethical principles into concrete laws, policies, organizations.
Exactly. We see this happening, with regulations like the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR,
Right.
which aims to protect, individual privacy in the age of data-driven AI,
Right.
but on a global scale. Aligning national approaches to AI governance remains a significant challenge.
It sounds like we're a long way from a one-size-fits-all solution, especially given the vastly different, cultural and political landscapes
I know.
across the globe.
Indeed, indeed. But that's precisely why an integral theory approach is so valuable. It encourages us to consider all these perspectives simultaneously.
So instead of getting like stuck in one quadrant, we need to kind of weave them all together to create a more holistic understanding of AI governance. That makes sense. And that brings us to like the crucial question, how do we actually integrate these quadrants in a way that leads to effective action?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, and I think that's a perfect segue into part 2 of our deep dive.
Ooh, cliffhanger. All right, listeners, we'll be back soon to delve deeper into the practical applications of integral theory in AI governance. Don't go anywhere.
See you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've laid out these 4 quadrants of integral theory, and we've seen how they can like help us understand the individual and collective aspects of AI, both internally and externally. But how do we actually integrate them into a practical approach to AI governance?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's easy to talk about these quadrants in isolation, but the real challenge is, weaving them together
Yeah.
into a coherent strategy for actually governing AI out there in the real world.
Okay, so let's imagine, we're policymakers trying to create this framework for AI governance. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is recognizing that no single quadrant holds all the answers. Like, for example, if we just focus solely on, say, the upper right quadrant, the technical aspects of, AI safety and reliability, we might overlook the potential societal impact.
Right, we could end up with perfectly functioning AI systems that are, exacerbating inequality or eroding privacy without even realizing it.
Exactly. Or conversely, if we get too fixated on the ethical dilemmas in the upper left quadrant, we might stifle innovation, out of fear and uncertainty.
So it's kind of like this balancing act. We need to consider the ethical implications, but not get totally paralyzed by them.
Precisely. And that's where, the lower quadrants come in. They remind us that AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by cultural narratives and embedded in these, complex social systems.
So we can't just focus on the technology itself. We have to think about how it interacts with, the messy reality of human societies.
Exactly. Think about the development of self-driving cars.
Okay.
From a purely technical perspective, we've made incredible progress, but we've also seen how those advancements bump up against cultural norms and legal frameworks that just weren't designed for autonomous vehicles.
It's like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Right. And that's why an integral approach is so crucial. It forces us to consider not just can we do this, but should we do this? And how will this impact the world around us?
So how do we actually, put this into practice? How do we avoid those tunnel vision traps and create AI governance that is, truly holistic?
I think one key is fostering communication and collaboration between experts from different quadrants. We need ethicists talking to engineers, social scientists talking to policymakers, and everyone engaging with the public.
Who will ultimately be affected by these technologies.
So it's about creating this dialogue that bridges the gap between, the technical and the human.
The individual and the collective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that dialogue needs to be ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Because AI is constantly evolving. What might seem ethical today could raise totally new concerns tomorrow.
Right. It's not like this one-time fix. It's an ongoing process of adaptation and reassessment.
Precisely. And it's a process that, requires a certain amount of humility. We have to acknowledge that. We don't have all the answers. We're going to make mistakes along the way. And we need to be willing to, learn from them and adjust course as needed.
So it's about, embracing uncertainty and being open to new perspectives, even those that challenge our, assumptions.
Absolutely. I think that's a key insight that integral theory brings to the table.
Yeah, it reminds us that AI governance isn't just about finding the right answers. It's about asking the right questions and engaging in this continuous process of learning and growth, which leads us to, another crucial question. How do we know if we're on the right track? How do we measure progress in AI governance when there's no clear finish line?
That's a great question. And I think it's the perfect place to pick up in part 3 of our deep dive.
Ooh, another cliffhanger. All right, listeners, we'll be back soon to explore how we can assess the effectiveness of AI governance and make sure we're moving in the right direction. Stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back to our final part of this deep dive, into AI governance.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. We've talked about these 4 quadrants, right, of integral theory and how they can help us create a more holistic approach. But now for the big question, how do we actually measure progress? How do we even know if our efforts are making a difference?
Yeah, I think that's the crucial question, and it's where things get really interesting. Because, we're not just talking about simple metrics, right? Like the number of regulations passed
Yeah.
or the amount of funding allocated. We're talking about assessing the overall like health and well-being
Right.
of this whole AI ecosystem.
Okay, so it's like checking the vital signs of a patient. We got to look at like
The whole range of indicators,
Yeah.
right? To get a sense of the overall picture.
exactly, and those indicators
So
they'll vary, right, depending on which quadrant we're focusing on.
Oh,
In the upper left quadrant, the individual's inner world, we might want to look at like
Yeah.
public perception surveys,
makes sense.
right? Like, are people feeling more or less anxious about AI? Do they actually trust the technology? Do they feel like they have a voice in shaping its development? So it's about gauging like the emotional temperature surrounding AI. Are we moving towards a future where people feel empowered by AI?
Or threatened by it.
Precisely. And then, in the upper right quadrant, the individual's outer world we can look at, like more concrete metrics. Things like, the frequency of AI incidents.
Okay.
Are we seeing a decrease in, algorithmic bias? Are AI systems becoming like
More reliable.
more predictable?
Look, this is where we're measuring like the actual performance
Yeah.
of AI systems out there in the real world, making
Yeah.
sure they're, living up to those promises.
Safety and efficiency.
Exactly. Now things
Yeah.
get even more nuanced, right? When we move to the lower quadrants,
Okay.
in the lower left, the realm of like shared values and
heist.
cultural narratives, we might look at, media coverage of AI.
See.
Are you seeing like more balanced, more informed discussions? Or are we still stuck in those, tired old tropes, right?
Yeah.
Killer robots, technological unemployment, all that.
So it's about tracking the evolution of that AI narrative. Are we
Yeah.
moving beyond like the fear and the hype toward a more nuanced understanding of the opportunities and challenges?
Precisely. And we can also look at how AI is actually being integrated into different cultural contexts. Are we
Nice.
seeing, diverse perspectives and
Yeah.
approaches to AI development? Or is there like this dominant narrative that's being imposed globally?
So it's about ensuring that AI reflects, the richness and complexity
Yeah.
of human culture, not just like a narrow set of values.
Exactly. And finally, in that lower right quadrant, the realm of systems and institutions we can look at, like
Effectiveness.
of the regulations and those governance structures, are
Yeah.
they, adaptable enough to keep pace? What the rapid evolution of AI, are they fostering like collaboration and innovation while also protecting, human rights and societal values?
It's about making sure our institutions are like
That's
great of governing this, incredibly powerful technology.
Exactly. And the key here is that none of these indicators exist in isolation. They're all interconnected. They all influence each other.
So it's like this complex web of feedback loops. Positive trends in one quadrant can reinforce positive trends in others.
Precisely. Like, for example, increase public trust in AI. That can lead to greater investment in research and development, which in turn can lead to more robust and reliable AI systems.
And that can create like this virtuous cycle, right?
Yeah.
That benefits everyone.
Exactly. So measuring progress in AI governance, it isn't about finding this single magic metric. It's about looking at the whole system
Yeah.
and making sure that, all the pieces are working together in a way that
Yeah.
supports human flourishing.
So ultimately, it's not just about better AI. It's about building a better future for humanity.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into AI governance through the lens of integral theory.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. We hope this has given you a new perspective on this complex and rapidly evolving field.
Absolutely. And, keep those conversations going, because the future of AI, it really depends on us all.
Couldn't agree more. Until next time, everyone.